Alright, hello everybody. Welcome to yet another reaction video. This time I'm taking a look at engines of Amtrak EMD SDP40F from AmtrakGuy365. I am going to do my best to react to all of these in chronological order, as in the playlist they're featured in, they're kind of mixed and matched. Mishmash, I think. Since the old ones and the remakes are featured together. So obviously I'm only going to be taking a look at just the remakes because I care about all the up-to-date stuff. I want to be up to date on everything. So without further ado, let's start her up, and I hope my volume is good here. What do we got here?
Well, isn't this just like old times?
I don't know you.
Let's just say your hour has come again. So wake up. Wake up and smell the ashes.
Huh? Whoa. Hello everyone. I'm AmtrakGuy365, and welcome back to the first edition of... Wait, no. Get this bad camcorder audio out of here.
Ah, much better. But, what was this series called? Eggs of Amsterdam? Oh, I gotcha. Welcome to the first remade edition of Engines of Amtrak. In this series, as you may remember, I go over the various types of locomotives Amtrak has used over the years.
Oh, so this is the first remake of the series. Well, I didn't know at first since it doesn't say it in the title. But it's whatever. I gotta start at the very beginning anyhow.
Today, I'm here to talk about the EMD SDP40F. But before we get into that, let me give some historical context on American railroads in the late 1960s.
Go
The
ahead.
railroads were suffering
dreadfully, and no one cares.
The locomotives being used dated back to the 1940s and even the 30s.
They were
Passenger
ancient.
cars were just as old as the locomotives themselves and becoming increasingly empty as Americans turned to the airlines and the growing interstate highway system. Track maintenance was also becoming rare as vegetation reestablished itself along railroad right-of-ways. The condition of many railroads' trackage also limited speeds of both freight and passenger trains. Once grand rail stations were also becoming shells of their former selves or shutting down outright. It wasn't until June 21st in 1970 when Penn Central, who was borderline bankrupt, filed to discontinue 34 of its passenger trains that the US government took matters into their own hands. A few months later, in October, the Rail Passenger Service Act was signed into law. This created the National Railroad Passenger Corporation, or NRPC. It would go under the brand name RailPax until being renamed Amtrak. This was a combination of the words America and track. This new nationalized railroad system, supported by government and state funding, would assume control of intercity passenger trains across the country of rail.
I will admit, I don't remember learning or hearing about Amtrak originally being called RailPax. Also, this paint scheme it's a little basic, but it's cool.
Supported by government and state funding, would assume control of intercity passenger trains across the country of railroads who were interested. Railroads could contract out Amtrak to completely take over ownership and operation of their trains starting on May 1st of 1971. Railroads who chose not to join, of which there were 6 out of the 26 who didn't, were required to operate their passenger services until 1975 and go through the Interstate Commerce Commission for any service cancellations or changes. And 76 out of the 26 who didn't, starting on May 1st of 1971. Railroads who...
So we got B&O, ATSF, BN, Chesapeake, Ohio, L&N, Missouri, N&W, Penn Central, of course, UP, SP, whole lot of them that participated in this.
Railroads who chose not to join, of which there were 6 out of the 20.
Oh, so Southern was on there too for not participating in this thing until 1979. Now, wait a minute. I don't even recall them having passenger service either. Or maybe that's just because I don't know Southern and NW as well as I should. Which I'll be sure to try to educate myself a little better on those in the future.
26 who didn't were required to operate their passenger services until 1975 and go through the Interstate Commerce Commission for any service cancellations or changes. Amtrak was met with much skepticism, with many not expecting it to last long at all. It was assumed the American public would forget about Amtrak and passenger trains altogether. Well, clearly that wasn't the case,
They
as
beat the
Amtrak
odds.
began operations on May 1st of 1971 and would use a variety pack of inherited rail equipment with varying degrees of quality. This would be the case up until 1973.
This was their rainbow era, as they say.
Amtrak couldn't rely on their 10 to 20-year-old F&E units anymore, as mechanically, they were just about done for. In November of 1972, Amtrak placed an order for 40 locomotives costing $18 million. Electromotive Division, or EMD, would build what would become known as the SDP40F. Its mechanical design was based on the SD40-2 and SDP40, a passenger variant of the SD40. EMD didn't want to design an entirely new passenger-exclusive diesel for Amtrak should the company falter. The cowl body was based on the FP45 and F45 locomotive, used to power the Santa Fe Railway's exclusive Super Chief and El Capitan. This body type was perceived as more aesthetically pleasing when mixed with passenger trains.
Yep.
The units were also built for easy conversion to freight service should Amtrak cease operations, as was a common belief at the time. EMD's new product then went into service for Amtrak beginning in June of 1973. Regarding technical specifications, the SD stood for Special Duty, P for Passenger, 40 for Model 40, and F for having a full-width cowl body. The SDP40F was rated for a top speed of 95 to 103 miles an hour and powered by an EMD 645E3 16-cylinder engine producing
The legendary 645E3.
3,000 horsepower. The locomotive comes in at a hefty weight of 396,000 pounds. It has a length of 72
heavy.
feet 4 inches, width of 10 feet 4 inches, and a height of 15 feet and 7 inches. The locomotive came equipped with 2 steam generators at the rear, along with a 1,350 US gallon water tank just ahead of them. This was due to Amtrak's inherited passenger equipment still being steam heated. Lastly, the units came equipped with a Leslie SL4T air horn.
I've never heard
Here's
that
a few
one
samples.
before. Oh, this. Damn, that's actually sick.
The Cantina Chicken Crispy Taco isn't just a late-night taco. It's a seasoned and slow-roasted
Go
chicken.
away.
Initially, Amtrak placed their new locomotives out west exclusively. However, a second batch of SDP40Fs numbering in at 110, costing $50 million, this brought Amtrak's total number of units to 150. They had the road numbers of 500 to 649. The second order, which went into service in 1974, allowed Amtrak to finally replace their aging F&E units across the country. These later units also had lower profile cooling fans and air horn to accommodate the tighter clearances seen throughout the East Coast.
Oh, okay.
Trains magazine writer J. David Ingalls stated in 1975 that the SDP40Fs were the stars of Amtrak's long-distance trains. They were slow to get going, but when they were moving, they could really move. Unfortunately, while they may have looked nice, they sure didn't ride nice. Engine crews frequently complained their big locomotives rode roughly compared to the F&E units they previously operated. Some crews even reported being thrown out of their seats.
Jesus.
Then came the derailments.
Oh boy.
This is the one thing that the SDP40Fs are infamously known for. Between 1974 and 76, Amtrak, EMD, the Association of American Railroads, and the Federal Railroad Administration investigated to search for a cause to their rough riding and continuous derailments. The investigation revealed a number of possible causes. One was the constant lateral or side-to-side movement of water sloshing around in the steam generator's
Really?
water tank. This would end up causing the locomotive to have more weight on one side than the other and sway and shake as it ran.
I didn't know that was possible, given how heavy diesel locomotives are as is. But I guess that's not out of the question.
One of the FRA's investigations figured that harmonic vibrations between the heavyweight SDP40F and the lightweight passenger or baggage car behind it caused derailments. Hey, Amtrak, Guy365 here. Harmonic vibrations are an oscillating or continuous swaying motion resulting from a given force that can transfer to another object. Think of a simple pendulum. The force from one ball transfers to the others
Yeah,
and
that
acts on
thing.
the other side with the same amount of force. This then repeats. In the case of the SDP40F, the intense swaying and bouncing motion of the heavy locomotive transferred to the much lighter weight passenger car behind it. That amount of swaying and bouncing movement would cause the cars to jump the tracks. It's like dropping a bowling ball and golf ball from the same height. The golf ball bounces higher due to its light weight. In this case, the locomotive is the bowling ball, and the passenger car is the golf ball.
Simple
In
science.
short, weight distribution between the locomotive and the cars was very uneven.
Difference. Wait around 136,000 pounds. Generalized weight differs by car, and the locomotive 396,000 pounds. Yeah, that's definitely uneven.
Another FRA investigation made a claim that the hollow bolster HTC trucks were to blame. The last cause, which was much more clear, was rough track conditions. Many, but not all railroads, struggled to keep up and pay for track maintenance during this period. The Santa Fe, for example, didn't have much, if anything, to complain about regarding the big Amtrak units. On the flip side, Burlington Northern, the Chessie system, and Louisville and Nashville experienced major issues with the 40Fs. To combat these problems, Amtrak enforced slower speeds on curves and modified the locomotive's truck design. While this helped reduce incidents, the units had already created a ruined reputation for themselves. In 1976, the Chessie system had outright banned the units from their tracks, calling them rail breakers.
Damn.
They suspected rails were spread apart from the locomotive's lateral swaying. Amtrak's Empire Builder would then experience a 6-hour increase in travel time as a result of speed restrictions as well. By 1975, the GEP30CH had entered service to supplement the failing SDP40Fs, but Amtrak knew they still needed another new locomotive.
You know, it really is a miracle how the SDP40Fs, despite how much they derailed, they never ended up killing anybody in their derailments. No matter what, nobody died, thank God. Because I cannot imagine what it was like having to operate one of those things and be on any passenger train powered by one of those things and ending up in a wreck. Like, it's honest to God a miracle that nobody was fatally killed in any wrecks due to these things.
In turn, the F40PH was ordered beginning on May 8, 1975. It would soon begin to displace the SDP40Fs on not only long-distance trains, but shorter inner-city trains as well. The locomotive was further made obsolete as more of Amtrak's then new Amfleet 1 passenger cars went into service outside of the Northeast Corridor in 1976 and 77. They had been expedited into service due to the unusually harsh winter that season, putting much of the steam-heated equipment out of service. These Amfleet cars came equipped with head-end power, or HEP for short. New superliners commonly used out west also featured HEP. In short, the F40PH came equipped with head-end power, the SDP40Fs did not. It was clear who the winner was. In 1977, Amtrak traded in 40 of their 40Fs back to EMD. Components from these locomotives, including the prime mover, would be used in a series of F40s known as the F40PHR, R meaning built from SDP40F parts. In the following years up until 1987, Amtrak traded in a total of 132 units back into EMD for F40PHRs. Also during this time in 1984, Amtrak was experiencing a light engine shortage. In turn, they traded in 18 SDP40F to the Santa Fe Railway in exchange for 25 CF7s and 18 SSB 1200.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They did get a bunch of CF7s at one point. I completely forgot. They look kind of sleek in that basic gray-black paint scheme. So do these little switchers, too. I mean, yeah, it's not a special-looking paint scheme, but they do look cool and notable for it.
1200s. In 1985, the Santa Fe began converting their Amtrak engines for use in freight service. These were designated SDF40-2. This involved removing the steam generators along with regearing them for slower speeds. Other modifications included adding a railing for the narrow front-end platform, adding concrete ballast in place of lost weight from the steam generator and water tank, removal of a nose light, steam generator related parts being plated over, among other smaller changes.
And naturally, in the yellow bonnet paint scheme, they are gorgeous. I don't think any of these Santa Fe specific units ever survived into preservation, but I think I'm about to get my answer later in the video.
They proved much more reliable, having none of the problems Amtrak did when they owned them. The only issue proved to be the removal of a nose light created glare in the cab during adverse weather conditions, along with mounting and dismounting the unit. The SDP40-2's front steps were more or less a small vertical ladder rather than steps. This proved especially risky during rolling or on-the-move crew changes. Meanwhile, back on Amtrak, the remaining 40Fs had been reduced to work trains or stored away. The last 9 SDP40Fs would finally be retired off of Amtrak's roster in 1987. Those not traded into EMD or sold to the Santa Fe were likely scrapped.
R.I.P.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Tonight we have the Pride of West Africa. It brings together the...
Retrospectively, some of those who operated the big diesels think they would have survived longer had the steam heating tech been removed and HEP been implemented.
And well, maybe built a little better for, so they could operate. I forgot what I was going to say, but if they were more compatible for passenger service instead of freight service in a way. Like, I think you know what I'm trying to say, but I'm having a hard time getting the words out. But maybe if these issues were solved sooner, they could have had a better service life. But, they went out the way they did, and their history. But they'll be remembered no matter what.
In 1988, the Santa Fe began to remedy some of the lingering problems with their modified units. They re-implemented the nose light to reduce glare in the cab, and later that year they added notches on both sides of the nose. This once again allowed crews to mount the unit and enter through the nose as was preferred. In 1995, after the Burlington Northern Railroad and Santa Fe merged to create Burlington Northern Santa Fe, the SDF40-2s were renumbered to BNSF specifications. However, the first unit would be retired in 1999 after a low-speed derailment bent the frame and experienced significant body damage. By November 2001, the locomotives began to be put into storage at Kansas City and Barstow for the last time.
They lasted that long? Damn. Pretty sure that's longer than the remaining C30-7s that BN had that survived into BNSF.
All units were officially retired on May 2nd, 2002, and removed to Topeka, Kansas in August for part harvesting. That fall, scrapping commenced.
R.I.P.
However, not all is doom and gloom for Amtrak's hefty passenger units. In June 2002, BNSF 6976, formerly Amtrak 644, was pulled out of storage and sent to the National Railway Equipment Shop in Mount Vernon, Illinois. There it was painted up as a display locomotive for the grand opening of Maersk's Pier 400 container terminal at the Port of Los Angeles in August.
How many people remember that company? Like, as a kid, I certainly recognized them. And boy, does that thing look fantastic in that paint scheme. Very light baby blue, yet still keeping that stainless steel.
August. The scheme was reminiscent of Santa Fe's war bonnet design. The cold and dead unit was moved around by NS 3329, which was also decked out in Maersk colors. 6976 made one last public appearance at the opening of BNSF's Logistics Park Intermodal Facility in Joliet, Illinois on October 14, 2002. The unit was then once again moved to storage in Topeka with an uncertain fate. However, the Northwest Railway Museum acquired the locomotive in November 2003, numbered it back to its original road number of 644, and moved it to Portland, Oregon. There it would be repainted with unlicensed Maersk colors. 644 would be designated for Daylight Locomotives and Machine Works Incorporated, or DLMX, and saw service on the Portland and Western Railroad throughout the mid to late 2000s and early 2010s.
And it gained low ditch lights. Pretty cool.
It would then be kept at storage in Portland. In January of 2014, Dynamic Rail Preservation, or Dyna-Rail, moved the 644 to Ogden Union Station in Ogden, Utah. Tagging along was ex-Amtrak F40 PHR number 231. The 644 was now lettered for DYRX and was intended to be restored to its original Amtrak appearance. 644 and 231 then sat stagnant for several years until January of 2019. Dynorail, in conjunction with the Nevada State Railroad Museum in Carson City, moved the engines to the museum to be restored to operation. In June 2019, 644 was renumbered back to 6976 to honor its BNSF heritage. In late 2019, the unit ran under its own power once more, with more successful tests continuing into early 2020.
That's great.
However, 644 isn't alone. Two other SDP40Fs seem to still exist, with those being 169 and 218. These became EMD test units in the early 80s, but not much information is available on them. Apart from this Google Maps imagery located at the Transportation Technology Center in Pueblo, Colorado, I haven't been able to find much info or photos regarding their current whereabouts. It's said that they're currently heavily modified testbed units operating at the TTC in Pueblo.
Yeah, but I do know they still have at least 2 of those SD60 Max that they still use for testing, I believe. But then again, I'll have to double check on that soon.
Well, that's quite a positive ending to such an infamous and ill-fated locomotive.
Yeah, and if anyone can tell me what the current status is for 644, let me know down below. I want to know if it's been repainted, if it's still operating, like what's going on with it. Please tell me down below if you can.
While not the most successful locomotive, it still has plenty of fans out there and was definitely able to leave its mark and impact on the history book of Amtrak,
Sure did.
the National Railroad Passenger Corporation. Thanks for watching this remade version of Engine.
Alright everybody, that's going to do it for this reaction video. Let me know what you think down below. Original video will be in the description as always. Take care y'all, and I'll see y'all next time.